Welcome to Power Platform Connections. In this debut episode, we're going to be chatting with Business Applications MVP Azure McFarlane, and we're going to view the latest and greatest articles.
Did your video skip? You were too
Got
exciting.
fiber and everything. I know, I got fiber and all that. I mean, fiber internet. Welcome to this debut episode of Power Platform Connections, where we'll be visiting with Business Applications MVP Azure McFarlane, and we're going to discuss the latest and greatest articles, blogs, and videos from the community. I am David Warner, Microsoft Community Program Manager. With me is Hugo Bernier.
Hey, everybody. I'm also a community program manager, and with us is Azure McFarlane.
What's up? Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good,
Wonderful.
good. Welcome to the show. How are you? Thanks for being our
you.
first guest.
I know. I feel very flattered. I'm not going to lie. This is to be the debut guest. I want to thank my mom, Mama Cloud, Papa Cloud,
Absolutely. Yeah. Little
Don't
droplets and everything.
yourself. We were
Yeah,
just
where I
going
need-
alphabetically.
Aaron was not available,
That's right.
so we went with Azure.
I'll take that. Thank you for having me, guys. Truly.
Yeah, absolutely. You were our absolute first choice. Yep. Awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a Business Applications MVP. Tell everybody else who you are.
Sure. So you guys have said I'm a Microsoft Business Applications MVP. I work for Hitachi Solutions as a senior consultant. And so I've been there for about a month now. Last week was my 1 month anniversary. Does that even count for anything? I also am a teacher with Power Platform School, which is a great school to upskill career switching adults in the BAME community. And I also serve as head of global partnerships and growth for Textilers, a women in tech focused community.
Now, you've been doing a whole bunch in the community for sure. You've been speaking, you've been blogging, you've been chatting with everybody and socializing. What is your favorite part of being in the community?
Oh, really the friendships that you develop. I'm not even going to say relationships at this point because I truly believe that everyone ends up becoming a friend in some respect. I mean, I talk with you guys on Twitter and DM just, to check in with each other. Now that, in-person events are back to meeting people that I've been chatting with online since I got introduced to the community just before the pandemic and getting to hug them in real life. It's been really nice. So truly the community has been a place not only to get help just with Power Platform things, but to really find people who are like yourself and enjoy what they do.
Thank you. I know you're contractually obligated to say that to us by being on the show, but we appreciate it.
I had my fingers crossed behind my back, so does that cancel anything out?
Awesome. Now, you spoke at the Power Platform Conference last year, so you're talking about in-person events and all that. I think it's exciting that we're starting to get back together again. We know that it's a little tough right now in this macroeconomic climate. We hear a lot of phrases like doing more with less. Sometimes folks hear that and they think, oh, that's just a sneaky little way of saying I need to work more for less pay or longer hours for the same pay or something. But Hugo and I really kind of talk about how doing more with less is actually possible with not only the Power Platform, but with the community, right? Because all of a sudden your circle of friends maybe has grown outside of your just team within your organization, but really become a worldwide circle of friends. Has that happened for you?
Oh, absolutely. My first demo was with a group that I now serve with, Textilers, and that group was based out of Nigeria. And that was my first ever, public demo back in 2020. And now it's exploded beyond that. So I feel like I have friends in almost every continent at this point. The exception might be like the Asia Pacific region. So we're going to work on that for 2023.
Goals, hashtag goals, right?
Hashtag goals. Absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody out there want to connect with me, please send me a DM. I'm happy to chat.
You're doing Power Platform right now, but you're coming from a different background, right? You were not always a Power Platform person. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So I have a degree in biochemistry and left school and went into pharmaceutical manufacturing. I kind of fell into it. I know a lot of people say that, but for me, I had wanted to go to med school. My mom was sick at the time when it was time to take the MCAT. Decided somebody needed to pay these student loans. So I went into manufacturing and worked my way up there, starting as like a manufacturing technician, went into process design, then went into like change management and technical support, where I discovered Power Automate back in 2019, took a Flow in a Day class and fell head over heels for Flow. It was really love at first Flow. My first thought was, what else can I do with this? And my first flow was like a copy file and replace file flow for like a weekly safety topic that had to be presented to every group, at the week. But the issue was that sometimes they'd send, the PowerPoint to managers. Sometimes they wouldn't. It was a complicated thing, but I knew where the file lived. So I decided to see if I could save my team some time. And once that flow was built, didn't have to worry about it anymore. And then the wheels started turning about how much bigger I could do, with Power Automate. So that's where I ended up. I was in that role still for a little bit, transitioned into the first like Power Platform focused role at my site and worked with that for about 8 months, and then got contacted by a Microsoft partner earlier last year, and then fell into consulting. And so here I am now. It's been a really cool journey. Never had this on my radar at all. So for anybody who's out there thinking that they have to have a background in tech to get into tech, nah, you can come talk to me. Come talk to me.
It's pretty funny too, because like we often think about the journey that got us to where we are now, and sometimes we think back and we're like, oh, I wonder how different it would have been if that one thing had been changed, right? Like a sliding doors kind of thing. But by and large, when you think back to some of these things that maybe seemed like they were negatives at the time, have led you to where you are now. And it's hard to say you would change any of that, right? Because you end up loving where you're at.
Yeah. And even, I thought that maybe pharmaceuticals would never come back into play for me, thinking that, oh, that's just a part of my life that is gone. And when I joined, consulting last year, that one of the first projects that I got invited to was a pharmaceutical company. And it was really helpful because I knew, regulation, change management, how things operate, whereas the rest of my team didn't have that knowledge. So it still came in handy. And I would wager to say that a lot of people who work in Power Platform have probably ended up finding out that their skills from a previous place have absolutely prepared them for what they're doing now, even if it's not directly related.
Yeah, I thought the same thing for me when I went to school for a hairstylist. I thought I'm going to forever be able to do all kinds of stuff on practice at home, but so much for that, I guess, right?
I was going to be a
if
hair
you want to
model.
use me, you can use me if you want. You might have to fly me out to the West Coast, but I'm game.
Well, hey, you know what? And on that note, so we talk a lot about like the personal side too. I know that we talk about how you got started in Power Platform and the community and the industry, but these shows are important because we want to highlight kind of the personal side of people. So you had said that Los Angeles was one of your favorite places to visit. Tell us a little bit about why and what are your favorite things about it?
The last time I went to Los Angeles was 2021. What is it, 2023? Okay, so 2021. And the time before that was 2019. And I have friends that live out there too, so they can kind of show you around. But I love the food scene. Any cuisine of food that you want is great. The art scene is wonderful. I got to go to like a Jimmy Kimmel taping, and the tickets are free. That was a lot of fun. I had never done like the Hollywood, Walk of Fame, which was cool to be a tourist. But also, I like to run, and when 2019, I was training for a marathon and got to join a running group out there for the week and got to run with them. And so it was really great just to be able to see the city on foot while you probably normally wouldn't be able to do that, and join the group for like a 16-miler, and there was no humidity. It was wonderful. So I like
that is true. Yeah, no humidity. That's true. It gets blazing hot.
Yeah, here in Maryland, in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, like summer, it's a complete and utter swamp. Like that's just how it is here. So it's refreshing to go somewhere else where I can breathe.
Yeah, the TV shows are cool to attend to, and they are great. Like I got to attend a couple of Friends episodes that are taping. I'm aging myself, but the Ben Stiller episode with the screamer, right? I was in the audience for that one, so it's kind of a cool, fun thing to be able to do that. So that's really, really cool. So LA is your real life favorite place to visit. You had mentioned that from a make believe, you wanted to live or visit the Legend of Zelda area, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would do it. So Breath of the Wild, when it came out right on Switch, just, oh my gosh, the graphics were incredible. I really enjoyed playing. I have not finished the game yet. That's something else. It's on my to-do list. But I really love being able to, one of my favorite things is, you get to pick whatever food you want to eat, and you'll just have a variety of plants, herbs, meats, whatever, and you just throw them in the magic pot over the fire, and it does a little dance, and then it spits out some sort of meal. I like that a lot. I wish that was how things worked in real life. Yeah.
I haven't finished the game either. The old Nintendo NES one where you still had to blow in the cartridge, and so I'm still working on finishing that one.
You're working on that one. Okay, maybe we
Yep.
can partner up together to finish both of our games.
That's pretty great. Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to play that game because I would feel like the more I would discover, the more I'd be like, oh, I need to go here. I need to go here. I'd have like to quit my job, and people would report me missing because I'd be playing the game. It's too all
But that's why
consuming for me.
people have games is like that is their hobby. I can absolutely see how people get so into it. That is their thing, and they get good at it. And exploring maps is really cool. The games nowadays, I think, give you so much variety, more than just here is a challenge to finish. It's, here are other worlds to explore. So yeah, I could do the same too. We can take our careers into gaming, Hugo.
Now, you actually said that you actually, to relax, you cook. Now, I don't know if you knew this. Hugo used to be a chef, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay.
In real life, not in The Legend of Zelda, by the way.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's right. Yeah, but the food does dance. If you put enough butter, I did French cooking. So if you put enough butter, the food dances.
Ooh.
It's the same.
Oh, okay. We're going to have a conversation. Maybe the second bit of this should be like a recipe show, and we're going to have cooking with Hugo.
Well,
I keep saying we should have done that during COVID, like did little live cooking master classes with Hugo and stuff. Yeah.
I'm down for this if you have bandwidth.
Sign me up. I just finished making a batch of croissant, actually. It took 3 days to make, and it took less than a day for my family to just devour it.
Mm-hmm.
So, not sure if I'll do that again.
Tastes better when you say croissant, too, by the way.
Yes, that's right.
I'm ready to be adopted, so you just let me know. I'll pack a bag.
Now, you've been doing a lot of speaking engagements lately. What's next for you?
Next for me, so DynamicsCon Virtual is coming up next month. I'll be speaking at that with my friends Geeta and Foyen.
And that's in March, right?
That's in March, yes.
Yeah.
And then I don't think I have much planned for March, April yet, but there's supposed to be like a community event in DC that I'm attempting to also speak at. So we'll see. I feel like my calendar this year, I haven't quite filled it up yet, but I'm waiting to see what pops on there.
Anything that you've submitted on that's not quite yet confirmed that you're excited about?
Well, Power Platform Conference, where I know that the speaker announcements have been coming out. So hopefully I'll get the opportunity to speak again. It was my first in-person engagement while being in Power Platform community because I got COVID speaking at Dynamics.
I was going to say, that one was kind of crazy last year, right? So how did that play out? I remember it like it was yesterday, actually, but maybe everyone else doesn't.
Yeah. Okay. So I had gotten into DynamicsCon Live, and it was the first year that they were having a Power Platform track live, and flew out to Texas and woke up the morning of the first day and tested positive for COVID. And I cried. I was so upset because it was my first in-person engagement. I wanted to see all my friends. I had gotten to go to the meet and greet the night before. And woke up, the next morning doing my due diligence, and I didn't see anybody the rest of the time I was there. I was in the hotel quarantining for 5 days, and then I flew home. Was quarantining there. It was also my birthday at the same time, and I was like, "Wow, what a great birthday!" And didn't think I was going to make it to Power Platform Conference, which was like 2 days later. And I was keeping David updated, and I was like, "Oh man, I'm really bummed. I'm not going to be able to make it." And then Monday, I tested myself, and I was negative. I was like, "This has to be a joke. Let me just test again, a little later." And it was negative again. And I messaged Dave and I was like, "Oh, well, just my luck. I tested negative and I'm not going to be able to make it. I'll see you next year." And David was like, "You better book a ticket and you better get down here." And I did, and I had the time of my life. So thank you very much for encouraging me to still come, because I was ready just to be like, well, I guess that's it for me. I'll have to wait another year. So it was
same time zone. It was like, I was like, how long of a flight is it? You just come on south,
it was
right?
Perfect. Yeah, I think it was like a 2.5 hour flight. So it wasn't like I had to fly across the country. I got the last flight out of Washington, D.C. for the evening and made it, I think, like 11 o'clock or so. Met some people like in the bar that I had met online, right? Like a couple of community people. And I think I went to bed at 2, 3. And then, and that's just kind of how the next couple days proceeded. It was just, you're with friends, enjoy the time
Yeah.
that you have. So it really was a wild last year. But I'm glad it worked out the way that it did. It was a phenomenal time. I think I would have been really, really upset had I missed the entire thing. So thank you.
Yeah. Glad you could make it.
Well, what's interesting is we record for the audience. We record these shows on Mondays, and they will be released on Thursdays. But with the Power Platform Conference, every Wednesdays we do something special. What is that we do, David?
Well, so we're letting folks know that they've been selected on social media. So the idea really came from the concept that was done at Ignite a few years ago. We want to make it really kind of a social storm in a good way. Surprise people who, normally you get that email from Sessionize and you're like, oh, well, yay, and you're kind of alone and you're celebrating and that's it, right? But we're doing consistent, and we're not eating up all the slots or anything. We're making sure there's plenty of space as people come up to the end of the call for speakers. But we want to do a consistent release of those that have been selected along the way so that they can kind of celebrate with their friends on social media and their family on social media. So I think we're going to break that mold again here, Hugo, or what do you got in mind?
Yeah, Azure, what are you doing in October?
I mean, I'll be somewhere in the vicinity of Vegas. I figured if I don't get in, I'd even come to just party with everybody.
You can't stop me. You can't stop me. I'm going
to be there.
Well, you've been selected as one of the speakers. We're happy to tell you live. Woo-hoo.
Oh, thank you. Is it my RPA session? Please tell me it's the RPA session.
Might be the RPA session.
Okay, I'll take that. I did not get to present that last year because I got replaced, just with the COVID thing. So, okay, people are gonna have a treat, I think, with this session. So,
yeah,
if it's that one.
I love RPA. Do you mind telling folks a little bit about what RPA is about, just for people who may not know?
Sure. So it is robotic process automation. It is a desktop form of automation. So we know about cloud flows. They happen in the background. We don't really get to see what's happening, which is the magic happens. Desktop automation is a little bit different in the fact that you can access legacy applications on your desktop. So maybe you have a sunsetted technology that's not supported anymore, but your business still uses it. So you can do desktop applications and you actually see what's happening on screen, right? So the script will run and you'll see like Excel opening up or SAP opening up or whatever, the desktop application is. It can also do for websites, web-based applications that don't have an API. And then that way you can do things like my budget software is You Need a Budget. It's a web-based application. You can have the desktop one, but I use the cloud version. I can update that, in the background, but it doesn't need a connector for it. So I think that's pretty neat. In addition to if like with your business, you are able to integrate cloud flows and desktop flows together. So if you have something that needs to happen in the background, like you're waiting on an email for to come in order to have something occur on your desktop, maybe it's going into this legacy application. You can then combine the two now, so you don't have to wait for the email, let the cloud flow do its thing, and then go to Power Automate Desktop and press the play button. It'll just happen for you in sequence. And so you can have this on a computer that is logged in and running, right? You can have this as like me as a user. You can also have unattended RPA, which means you could have like a standalone computer that is just dedicated to RPA. It'll run all the processes needed for it. So I think it's pretty neat to be able to integrate new things with old, because we recognize that not everybody is in the cloud yet, or if you need to use the internet for a few things and you don't have an API or a connector for it, you can still use those applications. So
what you're telling me is that I could get a Super NES emulator to run that old Legend of Zelda and just automate the completion of it in Windows, right? Is that what I hear?
David, I think
you're telling me there's a chance.
I'm not going to say there's not a chance, but I think you might spend less time beating the game than building the flow.
What's fun in that, right? Awesome.
But I get it. You want to automate everything, and that's kind of how I am. So maybe.
Well, but one of the cool things about RPA, I think, is we'll talk to customers often and they're like, oh, we want to automate everything, we want to automate our processes, but we have this old legacy system that we're going to replace in 3 years from now. And we don't
Sure.
want to look at it the wrong way because it's going to fall apart if you even look at it the wrong way. So we don't want to get started automating our processes because we're waiting for that old system to be replaced.
Mhm.
And the great thing about RPA is to be able to say, hey, let's get started. Let's abstract that integration so that later we can just switch it behind the scenes and nobody will need to know that you replace the systems behind the scenes.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that happen, in like previous organizations at the time, by the time you've made the agreement to bring in this desktop software, by the time it actually gets integrated, it might be a couple years down the line. Then you're like, well, this is old news, but we spent the money on it. And until we find another solution, or maybe it will end up being no longer supported or deprecated, this is a great bridge to be able to still continue to use the system without slowing down the productivity, because we understand things in the cloud happen pretty fast, right? And people like that. But this is an alternate way to be able to still use that technology until you're ready to replace it.
Yeah, and there's also the the spicy topic of, well, when you're talking about robotic process automation, you're talking about replacing people. And I personally like to talk about the value of having the people that, well, like I'm a person that's actually maybe, I don't know, copying and pasting from one system to another, or things like that. But now I'm able to actually focus on really adding value, because this manual task is actually just automated, and it's always going to be consistent and clean. And
I think that's a great thing about automation is, one, it reduces the redundancy, right? Frees up your time to do other things. But also I feel like it very much reduces that fact, like the human error factor, right? The copying and pasting that you're doing between two different things, it's pretty easy to mess up, especially if you're doing it repetitively and may not be caught, in the instance, but it kind of reduces the need to go back and have somebody verify that work too. So I think it's pretty neat. I've never seen automation as being able to fully replace like the people aspect too. And like David said, earlier, the idea of doing more with less, even that mentality of like using automation. A lot of places are understaffed at the, at this time. There's a lot more work that needs to happen and less people to do it. And so if you can free up some of your own time so you can log off at the end of the day, why not use automation to help?
Yep.
So that's what I think.
Yeah, and the other thing too is when people start thinking about automating their processes, they're like, oh, we have to automate from end to end, the complete scenario, where it's like, no, start with, the core, and maybe right now it sends an email to Peter to, copy and paste the information from one system to another, or do things like that. But this is when, after that, you get to use RPA to potentially automate that. And then later, if you want to change your system and support APIs or create custom connectors, you can absolutely do that. But you take it one step at a time as opposed to using the big bang approach.
That's absolutely the way that I encourage people to get into Power Automate too, is don't think of, you may have a really big business process, but you don't think of it as all at once. You're going to get too overwhelmed. There's a lot of stuff in the studio, right? And I think of what part of that process can you start with that's really low activation energy to get you started. That could be in the middle. It could be the beginning part, could be the end part, doesn't matter. And then you use those skills to then create, more automation to get to the full business process. A customer that I worked with before, that was how we started with one of our things, replacing like a safety adverse event system was existing. It was in SharePoint. We're like, okay, well, we're going to leave that in place. What's the first step that you do? Okay, let's automate that little bit and then give some, like what's the next thing that you would like to have happen? We have options. So sometimes it just takes some time to work through like what your options are. How much time do you have to focus on, a bit of the process?
Yeah, you don't want to let progress be the enemy, or perfection be the enemy of progress, right? So.
That part too. Yeah, you can always go back and improve what you've done. So if a good flow is one that works at the start, go back and make it better as you learn more.
Right.
And think about the 80-20 rule too. I think customers sometimes will say, oh, I need to automate every single step, every single scenario known to man, where they're going to spend a lot more time on that one fringe scenario that's never going to happen. So you can actually do 80% of your work with 20% of the effort.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
Well, Azure, thank you for being our initial guest on the show today. Congratulations on MPPC. We're excited to see you here in the future.
Bring your dino costume.
They were dragons, but
sorry,
who's
dragons.
counting? Right.
Wait, so who had there were some dinos going up and down.
There
the
was some dinos
too.
running around. Yeah, there was. Yeah.
All right.
So thank you for saying that, because I thought I had imagined those the whole time. I was not talking about them.
I have proof.
Out of my water.
Thank you. So did we get a legal agreement that Azure is going to accept? Legally binding agreement? Yeah. Yes.
This is a verbal contract, right? Yes.
Yes.
I accept.
Perfect.
You're saying yes to the request? Is that what it is?
Yes. Right.
Yes to the request.
Right.
All
Do
right.
I need a little sign? I can put it on Twitter. I accepted. Thank you, guys. I'm really excited to see you all. The last conference was I had such a great time, and this year I know is going to be even better. So thank you for all your hard work.
Absolutely.
A lot of things planned, so we're excited to work with you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. We'll see you in October.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, y'all. Take care.
Bye.
All right, that was great to hear from Azure. Make sure you check out the show notes in the YouTube video and our blog to learn more about Azure social handles if you want to reach out and connect with her. All right, so before we get started covering all the blogs and articles and videos that you amazing community contributors have sent to us, keep in mind we will highlight any and all. So if you would like your article or video or blog to be highlighted, just tweet or LinkedIn, share it on those. When you do, use the hashtag Power Platform Connects. You can see that on the screen, and we will make sure that it gets included each week. So we look forward to seeing what all you're cooking up. Talking to cooking up, Hugo, what do you got ready in the oven for us today?
Awesome. Well, the first person actually to reach out to us with Power Platform Connects was an article from Michael Miguel, which is about how to use Amazon DynamoDB as a virtual table within Dataverse. But this is with full CRUD, so create, read, update, delete. This is amazing, and it's a great article where it's a series of articles that Michael has done, where he's actually showing how to build basically the API infrastructure to support virtual tables. And for those of you who don't know, a virtual table in Dataverse is something that allows you to connect to data that is not stored within Dataverse. So you can integrate with your legacy systems or your existing databases. It's pretty cool. It's a very long article. I recommend that you give it a read, and you can absolutely use the same concepts for your own legacy system. Up next, we have a video from Scott Giro on how to make your applications more accessible, your Power Apps application more accessible. He's got a whole bunch of simple tips, things like how to use keyboard navigation, tab order, designing for screen readers. And if you haven't considered making your applications more accessible, one thing to remember is that when you don't make your applications accessible, you're potentially excluding up to 15% of the world's population. So if you want to increase your usage of your application, make them more accessible. And Scott is always awesome with his presentations and his videos. Next, we have 9 new independent publisher connectors as of January. We have a few here. I'm not going to list all of them, but one thing that's important to note is we're constantly adding new publishers or new connectors, to the Power Platform. You can actually build your own connectors to third-party APIs, and you can publish them independently. And this is the collection from January. I'm hoping that we'll be able to continue covering these new connectors moving forward.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's worth some applause and some screams. Nicely done.
Absolutely. Also, as of January, we have some new feature updates in Power Apps. And so we've got some new things when it comes to trust. So we have things that make it easy for you to automate the deployments in your pipelines using the Power Platform. We've got the new Dynamics 365 customer lockbox. And the lockbox is a place where you can create secure tokens and secure passwords and make sure that you don't have to worry about storing your passwords unsafely. Is that a good word, David? Insecurely? Whatever. Storing password, storing passwords. But they
We
can
want our
actually.
passwords to be secure and positive about themselves, right? So we don't want them to be insecure. Don't want to
That's
have a
right.
complex or anything.
We've got also a new, we were just talking about virtual tables. There's a new virtual table creation wizard that is now in public preview. It makes it super easy for you to connect to virtual tables. So for example, you've got a list in SharePoint and you want to make it available inside of Dataverse, but you don't want your Power Apps to know that it's coming from SharePoint. You can actually use the virtual table wizard to create that connection to your SharePoint list. What else do we have? We got a new Access database migration wizard that will migrate from Access to Dataverse. And that's been around for a while, but now we've added support for new columns, which is great. If you've got lots of legacy Access applications, you can actually take your Access applications, change the data source to be Dataverse, keep your existing applications as is, and just change the connection. But then, because now your data is in Dataverse, you can actually start creating new applications and new Power Automate workflows and things like that. So it's a great way to gradually transition to the Power Platform. All right, up next, we've got a few more. So we've got a new look for model-driven apps in Power Apps. And so this is all based on the Fluent UI design, which is if you've been using Office, Outlook, any of these applications, you're already familiar with the Fluent UI. And with that new update, you not only you're going to have the same look and feel, but the experience is going to be very similar for a lot of operations. And that's important because when you have users that are already familiar with Office, to send them into a Dataverse application, a model-driven application, they'll feel at home right away. And one of the options here, for example, is how to share. So if you want to share a record, the process that you would follow to share a record would be very similar to the process you would use to share a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet. And that's, again, leveraging the experience that people are already familiar with. Okay, so in Power Pages, I love Power Pages. In Power Pages, we've always talked about how you can use Power Pages to create a corporate representation or corporate identity of your website that connects to your Dataverse infrastructure. Well, Claudio Romano has just recently blogged about a new update with Power Pages that makes it easy for you to set up your site's brand, things like your title, your logo, your brand colors, and a lot more. And before you were able to do that, but you had to know a little bit about HTML and Liquid to be able to do this. But now we've made it easy for you to go put in your brand colors in the site and manage the header of your site separately from your styles from the rest of the page. And this is a fantastic way to be consistent and to respect the corporate identity. We also have a new update in Power Pages about the data workspaces. So in the past, if you were using Power Pages, you could connect to your Dataverse data. You could create new tables and new columns and things like that right from within Power Pages. The challenge was that if you wanted to create solutions and you wanted to make it easier for you to package and deploy these changes that you've made, you didn't have access to solutions. So now in the new update in Power Pages, you can now create and select the solution that you want your changes to be deployed to. That makes it super easy for you to deploy, again, all the customizations you've made to a different environment and follow the proper application lifecycle management. We also have a community blog by Ahmed Salih, who is showing how to actually embed a Canvas app into a model-driven app. And it's a full tutorial. Again, our documentation shows how to do that, but it doesn't always go into the full details of how to do this. So this community blog here is fantastic. You can just follow the steps and you'll be able to embed your Canvas applications inside of a model-driven application. And the last community blog that we have for the day is by Shanmuga Raja, and he's actually showing you how to integrate your Dynamics 365 CRM with a third-party API via the custom connectors using Power Automate. And it's a multi-part series that shows you how to actually create your your custom connector, and how to integrate with CRM and your third-party API. So that's it for us. Again, if you want your articles to be featured in Power Platform Connections, make sure to follow the hashtag below. And with that, David, was there anything else you wanted to add?
Thank you, everybody, for watching. We're excited on this journey to do this weekly. If you'd like to be on the show, reach out to us. We're excited to interview each and every one of you. Thank you all for watching.
Welcome to Power Platform Connections.
Did you know that debut is French for debut, David?
Debut. Oh, where's Azure?
Tell me when.